Howdy mates, here's the second video for today. I'm going to focus upon two distinct wildflowers that you can also find at your beloved Clifton Gorge State Nature Preserve. So without further ado, let's dive right into it, shall we? Alright, so the first particular flower we're going to look at is also known as the false Solomon seal. And they're distinguished by having alternating leaves on them, which are kind of like the shape of a like a teardrop or something, but on steroids, right? But the false Solomon seal, it's known to be robust, and it's a perennial, so that means it comes back each year. And their leaves, of course, have impressed veins on them, like those. Let me try to, yeah, like you see those marks here? Those are those deeply impressed veins, so that's another way of how to know if you're looking at one. But usually, too, with a false Solomon seal, you'll see right there, I mean, it hasn't fully developed yet, but those will turn into white little flowers, and that's the only cluster of flowers on this plant. And not only that, but usually they do prefer calcareous soil, meaning there is a bit of calcium carbonate in the soil, which makes sense because we're looking directly at limestone. However, you may be thinking, how can you tell a difference between a false and a true Solomon seal? Well, unlike with the true Solomon seal, the true seal actually has the cluster of flowers that runs along the bottom of the stem here. So, actually, since I'm already here, I'm going to show you guys an example. I happened to stumble upon it before I stumbled to the false Solomon seal. Alright, you see this right here? Notice how it has a very similar formation, you know, in terms of the alternating leaves along the stem. Unlike with the true Solomon seal, you can see the fruits that dangle beneath. Unlike with the false, you only had the cluster at the tip of the stem. So that, right there, is a true Solomon seal. Now, in terms of exactly why they call it that, I'm not really sure. My guess is it refers to King Solomon, maybe, you know, from the Bible. But I could be entirely wrong. In terms of, like, naming the plant in history, I don't really know too much of. But, yeah, this is the false Solomon seal. And I'll actually provide an article later on just to provide some detail of what it's really used for. Okay, so then the next flower that I want to focus on is right here. And actually, it is known as the Drooping Trillium, also known as Trillium flexipes. That's the scientific name. However, though, it looks a little slightly wilted right now because we had this short little frost period. So weird. But Drooping Trillium is distinguished by having these large whorled leaves that, and there's 3 of them, that meet along the tip of the stem towards the top, or the summit, more or less. But they're also robust. They can grow up to 16 inches long. Like, you can actually see how long the stem is. I mean, they're quite large. And also, and reason that they call it drooping too is kind of see, like, the shape of it kind of looks like it is drooping, like it's frowning. And here is the actual flower itself, as a matter of fact. So the petals, they actually wrap behind the flower itself. So it's quite neat. just how it has that formation. And sometimes, too, you might be lucky, you could stumble upon maroon colored petals as well. So they can come in a bit of variety. But yeah, due to their drooping characteristic, that's why the white flowers usually go unnoticed most of the time. But fortunately, we're actually quite lucky. But yeah, this is another species of Trillium that you can find in the state of Ohio. But yeah, it's awesome, you know? This is why spring is one of my favorite seasons of the year. Just because of the amount of diversity there is. I mean, usually to find these types of flowers is usually harder. Because, you know, this is one of the only preserved areas in Ohio that's totally kept in its natural state. And Clifton Gorge, which I have helped with in the past, they are excellent at providing invasive plant removal, especially when it comes to bush honeysuckle or even garlic mustard, which was a plant I mentioned just the other day. So they're spot on with it. But then, like, if you go to John Bryan, on the other hand, which is a state park, so there is a difference between a state nature preserve and a state park. The difference is, with a state park, it's not just the natural area itself, but it's also in charge of a campground, too, as a matter of fact, or other recreational facilities. Unlike with a state nature preserve, it focuses specifically on the natural area itself. So that's why with state nature preserves, they're usually in a bit better condition, because most priority is focused in an area like here. But yeah, those are the two key differences, so that's something you don't want to always confuse. That's why I've always said Clifton Gorge State Nature Preserve, not State Park. So, alright, as I said, I promise that I will share a couple of articles referring to the false Solomon seal, and how you can tell the difference between a true Solomon seal, as well as the Drooping Trillium. So another thing you can do as part of Earth Day is to just let the natural area remain in its natural state. Leave no trace, because, I mean, who would really want to, honestly? I mean, it just ruins the absolute beauty of an area. And please, don't pick any of the wildflowers. I know I was touching them, but I wasn't picking them out of the ground by any means. So, that's another thing you can do for Earth Day, right? So, alright. Hope all you guys enjoy your Thursday, and Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks.